Welcome to Recovery TV. Quick question. Are you frustrated with dieting because no matter what you do, it just doesn't seem to be working? We're going to talk about that in this segment, and I have a special guest joining me, so don't go anywhere. Welcome to Recovery TV. I'm here today with Brittany Hunter, a registered and licensed dietitian, and she's going to talk to you today about 3 reasons that your diet or your diet program or your nutritional journey may not be working out for you. So before we begin with that, I'm just going to encourage you to make sure you subscribe to our channel and click that bell so that you can be notified as new videos come up. But we also want you to stay to the very end of this video because Brittany is also going to give you tips on what you can do or add to your life or your nutritional recovery journey that you might find will be more helpful. So Brittany, tell us a little bit about why people's diets may not be working for them.
There's 3 reasons I want to address why our diets aren't working today. The first one that I'd like to go over is the cultural reasons. We live in a very fast society. We want quick fixes to everything, and with the quick fixes also come the ideas that if we can go on a diet, we can lose 20 pounds fast. And with these diets, we typically don't think about how it affects our mental health and our physical health when we're wanting to go from one way to another very rapidly. It really can impact how we view our diets and how we're eating and how rapidly we want our results, and that can often lead us to feel like we're failing. And when we fail, then we feel guilt and shame and then typically fall off of our diets. And so our culture really sells us the message that if we just have enough willpower, if we just try hard enough, that we can really have the results that we want. But instead we fall into the trap of believing that we have to be perfect and we have to do it just right and it has to be a certain pace, and that's not typically how dieting and weight loss and weight maintenance works.
It's really important to remember that the cultural piece is a big deal because no one is bigger than culture, so it impacts everybody. And so when you're getting these messages that everyone can do it, you just need to try harder, and then you find it being difficult for you, then that affects you emotionally, and then sometimes you bail on it, you give up and think, believe a lie that you can't do it and it's not for me. And so it's real important that you be kind and gentle with yourself as you go through this process.
The second reason why our diets aren't often working is because they're very rigid. A lot of weight loss approaches tend to prescribe things like cutting out whole food groups or cutting out certain foods. And we know as humans in psychology, whenever we're trying to cut something out of our life, we think about it more. The rigidity of a lot of these diets that cut out whole food groups, that cut out things that our bodies really need for functioning and for fuel, can really lead to weight loss failure and weight maintenance failure. And so what we typically see is that a lot of the diets will say, well, cut out carbohydrates altogether, and so then we're left to eat protein and fat. Or we hear a lot that veganism is very healthy, and so now we're cutting out all meats and protein sources, so then we're just having carb and fat. Or then we hear fat is unhealthy. And so if we listen to all of the messages and all of the rigidity of these common diets, we are left to eat air, because if meat is not healthy and carbs aren't healthy and fat is not healthy, there is no other food. It's really just finding that balance and that center and that core of how can I follow a plan that's going to help me maintain my health, but also find that balance that my body really needs to find true health, which is really important.
In mental health, rigidity is actually a problem across the board for most things in life. And one thing that I talk about with clients is a concept that I call tightrope walking.
Yeah.
And there's only one way to walk a tightrope, and that's perfectly. You know, so you veer to the left, you fall, you veer to the right, you fall. And I assume the same thing would be true with your nutrition and your diet.
Yeah, and you know, true health and true balance in finding nutrition, it's flexible. It's flexible in our proximity to food. It's flexible in our ability to prepare certain types of foods. It's flexible with our hunger and our fullness, and just being able to really listen to our bodies for what they need as well, instead of that rigidity of walking on that tightrope with our balance and with our diets.
Right. So instead of a tightrope, you want it to be more like a pathway, you know, where you can move left and you can move right, and you still know that you're on the path and you're making progress, and you don't have to be perfect in it.
The third point is that with diets, they don't really address our relationship with food a lot of times. And so if we're following a diet plan and we're trying to find a way that we can have weight maintenance or sustain health and work on some of our health conditions, we want to really look at what is our relationship with food look like. Do we have a relationship with food where we feel like we're afraid of it, or we feel a lot of guilt and shame when we're eating? When we're following these rigid rules and having this relationship with food that is unhealthy, that we haven't tested with a therapist, a dietitian, and other medical professionals, we can often get into this place where we can't trust ourselves, and we feel like food is sort of the enemy instead of our fuel, and something that really can lead to us having enjoyment in life and building relationships around food, and it's an important part of our lives. And so making sure we have that relationship with food that's healthy is very important.
So the mental health element and the relational elements go hand in hand. You have to face the reality that food makes you feel good, right? You get a dopamine kick in your brain when you're eating foods that you like. And for some people, in the things that you've gone through in life, that might be the only thing in life that is making you feel good, and then you're entering into a program or looking at starting a nutritional or changing your nutritional habits, and the message you're getting is, I'm giving up this thing that is the only thing that makes me feel good. That's why it's so important to make sure you're addressing the mental health element of your diet, and in conjunction with understanding your relationship with food.
Yeah, because that can really lead to an even more unhealthy relationship with yourself. A lot of times those diets can sort of start to trigger that emotional response and coping mechanism and for ourselves with food. And so it's really important that we look at that and our relationship with food and our coping skills.
So if you've made it to this point in the video, then you've heard these 3 things that might be contributing to the problems you're having in making your diet work for you. And so now the question that everybody's wondering is, then what works? What do you do about that?
So what I would recommend is to start by seeing a registered dietitian who's trained in behavioral health and behavioral nutrition to help you work with your relationship with food and help you to move forward in your diet, to help you find the balance and the true health that you're really seeking when you're following your diet. Secondly, I would recommend, and this is what any registered dietitian would do, recommend you go see a medical doctor to make sure that your labs look good and that your health is in a place where if you're following a specific regimen, it's not going to be harmful to you and your body. Last but not least, I would definitely see a therapist. As you're seeing your registered dietitian, you're going to be working through some of the behaviors that you have with food, and then some things might come up that you might be using food to cope with certain feelings. And a lot of times with dieting, that's typically what happens, because it's a natural human response that we want to cope with a lot of the things that are going on inside of us with outside solutions, and those things don't ever really truly bring us full fulfillment. So to be able to be successful long-term in following a diet that's healthful and nutritious and balanced and that can be a success for your life, you want to make sure that you have a whole team approach and that you're not just looking at one aspect and buying into the fast, quick results that our culture and some of these diet programs offer and provide.
What we want to be clear on is that we're not suggesting that all diet programs that are out there in the world are bad for you. What we're really suggesting is that you take the extra step in your nutrition, and by seeing a registered dietitian, seeing a therapist, going and seeing a doctor, getting blood work done, so that you can make your nutritional efforts beneficial to you and long lasting. So you're playing the long game here.
Lastly, I would just say, don't be discouraged with the attempts that you've had before that have failed. If you've done it in a way that may not have been something that's sustainable or long-term, or haven't sought the right tools, then that's not something that you can look back and say, okay, well, if before this didn't work, it can't work for me now. that we have a toolbox that we can offer you as health professionals, mental health professionals. And so I would just say really utilize the tools that you have available to you and move forward and give yourself that confidence that you can have to make these changes that you're really wanting to make in your life.
We hope the information on this video has been helpful for you in your recovery journey and in your nutritional journey. I am going to put links in the description of this video below. You'll find links to Brittany herself, so you can read more about her, follow her on Facebook, or even contact her, but also helpful links that might help you in your nutritional journey. So we appreciate you being here today, and we'll see you back next time. Thanks.
Thank you.